you can see that by default I already have a skin equipped and I can interact with it. I'm gonna add some money to myself and I can buy another skin, and it also tells me the price of it. And if I equip it, it switches the buttons so I can't touch with it anymore. And if I hit play, have that skin loaded. If I close and start again, and I play, it remembers which skin I used. And the shop also remembers which skin I used because it's grayed out the button. I can buy another skin, equip it, and use it later. Hi, I'm Ricky. Today we're making an advanced version of the skin shop. This project is based on a video I already made, so link in the description. I recommend you watching it because this entire video is based on that. We see how to make the UI look better, we'll optimize the code and make it safer, and really add some very nice functionality. By the way, we recently almost hit 100 subscribers, so I thought it would be a good idea to open a Discord server and a Twitch channel. I'm not very savvy with Discord, and it's my first time streaming on Twitch, but come join the server and follow me on Twitch and maybe we'll have some fun. Also, if you have some programming questions that are a bit too complicated for YouTube, Discord is a perfect place to discuss them. Alright, let's start. Here we have our shop system from the beginner version. I just changed the colors a little bit. Now, let's start by making the UI a bit prettier. So by making, for example, the shop text be centered, and selecting all the texts and making them of the same font, or at least a better font than the default one. And before we do that though, let's go in the skin panel, and let's delete the skin shops, and let's make this a prefab, so that we only need to change this once. Alright, now let's select the text. And I usually use a combination of Anton and bangers. I think bangers looks really nice, so I'm gonna keep that. Alright, and now let's also fix the anchor points. Let's see, the skin in shop is perfectly stretched on all points. The shop text needs to be like this. Skin panel, change the anchor points. Then skin in shop. For now I'm gonna keep it like this. Let's do play button first. Just need to change this. Alright, and before we change skin in shops, as I said, let's make a new component, or rather a new empty game object. Let's make it like this. And before you stretch it to the corners, keep it centered, so like this, the default one, so that you know which center position it is. You can just do 0, 0 on X and Y. And if you like how big it is, then only then you set the anchors. I'm gonna call it grid parent and put in the grid layout component. And before we put the skin shop into the grid parent, let's open the skin shop and let's also anchor the text is already anchored. The skin button needs to be anchored like this, and skin image also. Alright, and now the skin shop, we can put it in the grid parent, and now it resizes correctly. Can just change the values in here. Yes, it looks better. And now we can duplicate it to see the effects, but we're still gonna change a few things on the skin shop, so for now let's keep it just as one. Alright, the next thing, let's also change the text of the play button to pitch black. I think it looks better this way. And let's also set the color of the skin shop, so the whole panel that covers everything, to a nice bluish. I think this looks nice. And then for the buttons, you can put a nice orange. I can just copy the color if you want and paste it in the play button. This looks a lot better already. If we hit play, you can also see the sprites updating, so it still works. And now what we can do is something really cool. We select both buttons and we add a shadow component. It's really nice, see? The initial effect is a bit thin, but we can increase it. So in here we diminish the Y and increase the X. And this gives it a nice 3D feeling. On the play button we can increase it even further because it's on a darker background. And now it looks as if they're really clickable, like you can actually interact with them. Finally, we can duplicate this skin shop, and now we can set some spacing. Perfect. I'm only setting 3 because I only have 3 skins, but doesn't matter. Now we just change the skin info. Alright, much better. You can see that just very few changes. You don't have to be artistic, you don't have to know how to draw. You can really make the UI look a lot better. Alright, let me also clear the player pref while we do this. Alright, finally let's make a new folder player prefs, not player prefs, prefabs. And let's put in skin shop. Alright, okay, so for the next part we're gonna optimize the code and make it safer. So it's very simply, we just go in our scripts folder and one by one we see where we can do things better. So let's go alphabetically. Player money, let's see, this is a script of which we only have one copy of. So already I can see that we can make a singleton out of this. So let's make a singleton pattern. Okay, and player money should definitely not be a public value, and we are not reading from it neither, so we can just make this private. And just for the sake of debugging, we serialize it. Normally we shouldn't touch player money from the editor, but for the sake of debugging and knowing what's going on, I say we serialize it. So when I do this, I add this SFD tag, standing for serialized for debugging, and we're good to go. While for the try remove money function, let's see, well, it works per se, but player money should definitely be a player pref value. So let's add a player pref system. So let's make a new private const string for pref money. And then when we change the amount of money, we also change the player pref. Pretty simple. And then on awake, we just get this value into player money. This also means that if we change the amount of money from the editor, we are not gonna save that amount from the player prefs. So to actually save that amount, we should add some money and then chain a transaction. That's why I've also tagged it with serialize for debugging. But that's it for this script. Back to Unity. Next up is sim functions. And in here, we don't have to do much. In fact, we can also leave this as is. But one thing I like to add to my sim functions is setting the timescale to 1 whenever I change a scene. The reason being that timescale is a static value. So if your timescale is 0, so like if the game is paused or if it's a game over panel and you set the timescale to 0, if you change the scene or even just reset it, the timescale is not going to reset to 1. You have to do it manually. So in this function, I usually put timescale 1. Alright, this is just a safety measure. Alright, that's it for this script. Next up is skin and shop. Let's see. In here we have a lot of public values, which could definitely be private. So let's start with well, actually all of them can just be serialized and private. These ones for sure have to be serialized because we have to put them manually. This one could just be private, but we're gonna serialize it anyway for debugging. Alright, then let's see. In here we're setting the image to the correct sprite. We check if the skin is unlocked. We change the button text. One thing we're not doing is setting the button text to say buy and then the amount of money that is needed. Right now we don't know how much a skin costs. So in here we say, well, if the skin is unlocked, then we say it's equipped. If it's not unlocked, so if we still have to buy it, then we change the button text to say how much it costs. And as the value, we just take the skin info, skin price. Skin info, we set it manually through the editor. Alright, then down here, when we press it, we're using find object of type for both the skin manager and the player money. While this isn't a very huge problem, but actually it's a very small problem, because in a skin shop you're not really using a lot of RAM, you're not using a lot of performance, so it doesn't really matter if you use inefficient functions. But for the sake of being organized, let's use singletons. So in our skin manager, let's open it, and let's add a singleton pattern. Okay, and then we close this. We're gonna worry about it later. For now, let's just replace this with the singleton. And then in our player money, we already made a singleton out of that. Yeah, so we can use it already. Okay, and in here we're setting a player path, then we check if the skin is unlocked. I don't think we have much else to do here, so for now let's close. Next up is skin loader. And in here, we don't really have anything except for this public value, which could make serialized and private. It's just a reference to the player sprite renderer. While this skin is fine, we are reading from a static value anyway in here. So we're good with the skin loader. Next up, skin manager. Let's see, in here we already have the singleton pattern that we made before. You have a static value for a sprite, which is public though, and it really shouldn't be, or at least, well, it needs to be public because we are reading from it from the skin loader, but we only need to read from it, not set it outside, so let's add a property. Much better. All skins also should definitely be only private. Alright, and in here we are getting the last skin used by player pref, and then we are looking for all our skins in our game and trying to find which one is the correct one. In this case, this for each plus if statement is basically what an array.find function does. So instead of doing this, let's use array.find. And we have to import from system. And finally, we can just save this in a value. So we do skin info, skin used last time, and then we equip it. And we can delete this. Array.find is a bit clunkier, but it's also a lot more precise. If I'm using array.find, I know for sure that I'm trying to find something in an array, while for each is a bit more vague. Alright, equip skin, we are getting skin info, and we just change the equipped skin and change the player pref, so nothing to worry about that. Although we are using a string, a variable string for the skin pref, let's instead use a private const string. Great, back to Unity. You only have one script left, which is skin info. In here we have a bit more to do, because this is a scriptable object. If you change a scriptable object's data during gameplay, it changes that value also in your computer. But this behavior is different if you are playing in the editor or whether you are playing on an actual built game. If you're playing in the editor and you change a value during gameplay, then the value is changed. You have to modify it back again. If you change the value during a built game, it's not gonna save. It's a very tricky thing, which can lead to a lot of headaches. So the best thing to do is to make all the values in a scriptable objects get only values, non-settable, so we can only read from them. For the enum, it doesn't matter, we can change an enum. For the enum instance, we have to add a property. As a matter of fact, for all three of these things, we want to read from them externally, but we only want to set them through the editor. So let's add a serialized field private value. And then let's duplicate it and add a get property. And for the duplicated value, let's make sure we add an underscore or whatever change of variable name, so they're not the same value. Let's do the same for the other two. Great, that's it. Now we just have to fix the errors. The errors being that we are trying to read from these scriptable objects values with the old variable names. Just have to add the underscores. And in our skin manager, we also have to do that. Alright, and we're good to go. Now we have set already the skin shop's new values. So if we hit play, the skins work, and they also show the new text showing the amount of money needed. Let me actually change the values of these skin prices. And also, if you go in the game manager, we have our player money script. If I increase the money, it's actually gonna reset to 0 because we don't have a player pref. So I'm gonna increase it now. I'm gonna buy 1 for 1, and it goes down to 1. Can buy another, goes down. Let me keep the green one, and I have the green skin here, so it works. If I close and start again, it still works. I still have that kept. Alright, so nothing broke, which is really nice. Alright, so we are done with optimizing the code and making it safer. Now for the next part, we're gonna add some actual new functionality. We already added a little bit of functionality. We made it so that the buy buttons show the amount of money needed to buy that certain skin. It was really simple. In the skin shop, we just added an else statement in the isSkinUnlocked function, and we changed the button text to show the price. But now let's add some more functionality. Let's make it so that the default skin, so the brown one, is automatically bought at the start of the game. So let's select our skin shop. Let's open skin shop script. In here we simply add a new boolean. And with this new isFreeSkin bool, we just use it. In here on awake, we just say, well, if it is a free skin, then let's try and buy it, and let's set the price to 0. And to unlock the skin, we can just call on button press. This way we're gonna go in here and buy the skin, and we just need to change the price to 0. But I think it's better, because we may add some functionality in here, I think it's better if we just copy this bit of code, put in here, and then for the skin price, because it's a free skin, we just set the price to 0. And with this line of code, we set the skin to be unlocked on the play path. And because then we use the skin unlocked function, we also change the button text to be equipped, so everything works. If we go to Unity, I'm gonna set this brown skin to be free. I'm also gonna clear all player paths, hit play, but you see that we get an error right now, saying we don't have a reference to whatever we are doing in the code. So let me close this, and let's go in here, and it says in this line of code we don't have our object reference. In this case, it's talking about the player's money instance value. Because we're using singleton patterns, we don't want to call on awake as singleton value. What we could do is add in a delay on this awake function, but the smarter thing to do would be to go to Unity, and in project settings, we have something called script execution order, which is in this tab right here. This shows in which order the Unity events are called. In here, we can just add a script. In this case, it's player money. And then we add another script, which is skin and shop. We hit apply. And then these values tells us in which order the scripts are called. Because player money has a lower value than skin and shop, then it means that player money will be called first, and then all the awake methods on the skin and shop will be called. So now if we hit play, you see that it works, we don't get the error anymore. Also, the free skin works. You can see that it already says equipped. We can equip it, but it doesn't really matter because it's already equipped by default. Alright, for the next feature, let's make it so that the currently equipped skin is not interactable, so we can actually touch that button. To do that, we need a reference to all the skins in the shop, and we need to search for the right one. So this is a bit more complicated, but not much really. Let's go in our game manager. I'm gonna close this all skins serialization, and in here, let's make a reference to all the skins in our shop. To do that, we could use an array and just load all the skins in there, but it's smarter to just use a list and then get the parent of all the skins in shop panels, and then with the parent we get all the skin in shops. Now one thing, I've serialized this list, although we don't really need to. I just know this so we can actually see what's going on. I'm gonna add the serialize for debugging tag. Now to get all the skin shops, it's really simple. On awake, we just get this parent and we pass through all the children and see if they have a skin shop panel component. And if they do, we get that value and add it to the list. To get all the children really easily, we can use the for each key. And as a value, we can use a transform. When you use a transform as a for each value, you're basically using all the children's transforms. So in this case, if you say S is going to be whatever child of this value right here. So in here, we just use try get component. And if we can get it, then we add it to our skin and shop panels. Actually, I've renamed it with a mistake. Let's do it like this. All right. And that's it. Let's go to Unity. And as the parent, we just need to put in the grid parent. Let's see if it works. Yep, you can see that we get all three panels. Perfect. Alright, so now that we have our references, we just need to look into them and see whichever skin is the same one as the one we currently have equipped. So back to Visual Studio. Right now we're currently doing more than one thing in our awake method. So let's actually wrap this up into another function. And because we're equipping the skin right here, we want to call this before we do anything with the buttons. So we move it up here. And now, much like in our equip previous skin, we want to use the array.find function. So let's actually just copy it. And instead of skin info, we want a skin in shop. And the array we want to look at is our skin in shop panel. Actually, this one is the right value. And we say that the value is called skin equipped panel. And because this is a list, we need to add the toArray function. Great. Now what we want to look for in our skin shop is the skin info. So before we look for the skin ID, we want to search for skin info. But we currently don't have access to that. You can see that it says that it's not accessible. So let's actually go back to skin shop. Let's add a property to skin info. Alright, now in here, we just add the underscore. And now we're getting the skin info and we're getting the skin ID. And instead of looking for the skin ID, we can actually just look for the skin sprite because that's the one we are actually saving in our game. So just do skin sprite. And instead of the last skin used, we use equipped skin. And we don't need the toString function here. Great. So now we have our currently skin that is in our skins shop panel. And now we just want to take the skin and set the button to be not interactable. Let's see how it looks. The default skin should be a one on the top left, the brown one. If I hit play, you can see that the button is not interactable. Now we just need to make it so that if we buy something else, nothing happens. If we equip something else, then the button goes from this to false to true, and this from true to false. Alright, so in our script, let's add a new reference to the currently not interactable button. I'm not gonna bother and serialize it for debugging because we're gonna see it right on if it's not working. Now we just need to take this value and set it to this. And the next time we equip something, we just do this process again, but we change the values. So in our equip skin function, we can just copy this. And we add another value in here. And for the skin equipped panel, well, for this, we could just search for it in our array of skins. But what we could instead do is in our skin in shop function, in here where we equip the skin, instead of passing on the skin info, we just pass in the skin in shop value. So we pass in this. And now in our skin manager, when we equip a skin, instead of a skin info, we ask for the skin in shop. And now we just need to add one value to read from it. So we can just say skin info in shop. And now we can read the skin info. So it doesn't change anything in here. But now here, we can actually read the skin info shop. So we can just do this. Finally, for our keep previous skins, we also need to update it. We can just basically copy this again and use it here instead. I want to search for the skin ID. And for this last skin, use the value. Also, before we interact with the currently equipped skip button, let's make sure we actually have a reference to it. It's very simple, we just add an if not null statement. Also, because we are now looking at the array from the skin shop panels in the equip previous skins function, let's move this bit of code right up. And let's see how it looks. Alright, let's give it a final test. I've cleared all the player prefs. You can see that by default I already have a skin equipped and I can interact with it. I'm gonna add some money to myself and I can buy another skin, and it also tells me the price of it. And if I equip it, it switches the buttons so I can't touch with it anymore. And if I hit play, have that skin loaded. If I close and start again, and I play, it remembers which skin I used. And the shop also remembers which skin I used because it's grayed out the button. I can buy another skin, equip it, and use it later. Alright, so that's it for this video. Hope you learned something new. This video was a bit different. I tried to be going a little more in depth of what I usually do in my code. This was a very transparent episode, I think. This is basically exactly how I write my own code, which is very safe, it's very strict. I don't like using public variables at all. But yeah, if you liked it, please like and subscribe. If there's something you don't understand, please ask me in the comments. And if there's something you want to ask me that doesn't fit in the YouTube lifestyle, then you can join my Discord channel. In my Discord, you can ask anything, we have all the space in the world. I just started it, I'm not very expert on it, so it's probably really empty and stupid right now, but whatever. I've also started a Twitch channel. I play games and code games in there, so make sure to follow me. I just did a testing stream the other day, it was really fun. And yeah, see you next video.